Now, from Atlanta News First, the issues that matter to you. This is On the Record.
I'm going back to the people that I love, to live my life to the fullest as I always have, and I look forward to a new path ahead. I'll be resigning from office with my last day being January 5th, 2026.
Who will replace Marjorie Taylor Greene in Congress? That is the issue and the question that will be decided over the next several months as we continue to process one of the most stunning political developments in recent Georgia memory and if not the nation. This is On the Record for Wednesday, November 26th. I'm Tim Darnell, joined as always by my friend and colleague and the host of On the Record with Atlanta News First, Rick Folbaum. Rick, the news of late Friday night, November 21st, as I recall, it came out between 8 and 9 p.m., something that not even President Donald Trump was aware of when Marjorie Taylor Greene, the controversial, very staunch supporter of the president in Congress, arguably one of his most ardent supporters in Congress, really stunned the nation with the announcement that she is resigning from Congress effective January 5th, 2026. Something that not even the president was aware of. And what was your reaction? You know, we had already, our shifts were already over. We were looking forward to some downtime over the weekend with friends and family and what have you. What was your reaction when you heard the news?
Well, I think that a lot of us in the media use the word bombshell sometimes when it's not really fitting. But in this case, I can't think of a better word. I mean, when this news crossed, it was one of my daughters who actually saw it first. And she said, "Dad, look at your phone," which of course I did. And I couldn't believe it. And I immediately knew that we were going to have to get back to work on Saturday. So very quickly we began to get all of the people in place and figure out exactly how we were going to get in over the weekend to record our politics show On the Record, which airs Sunday mornings at 11. And thankfully we were able to corral the crew on a Saturday to come on in and record it. But yeah, I mean, my head was spinning. I mean, it was not something that I had foreseen. I don't think anybody could have predicted that she was going to do something like this. But then again, nothing about Marjorie Taylor Greene has been predictable over the last several months. As you said, she went from being one of President Trump's biggest cheerleaders and supporters to really one of his biggest critics among Republicans, that is, splitting from President Trump and from her Republican colleagues on a number of big issues over the last several months, to the point where she would come out and say things, for example, like that the Republicans should negotiate with Democrats over extending Obamacare subsidies. I mean, that was the main thing that Democrats were fighting for, and here she was saying that Republicans should capitulate, and she was the only Republican saying that. So I think that a lot of us were wondering, what is she up to? But did we think that she was going to resign from Congress? Absolutely not.
Well, and the thing that's so very interesting is you and I have talked about how different the political environment and the legislative environment is today as the way it was, say, 15, 20 years ago, when there seemed to be negotiation and compromise on both sides. Here is Marjorie Taylor Greene, conservative firebrand. She has made all sorts of controversial statements and endorsements in the past. And now, over the past month or so, she began to adopt a more, dare we say, a more statesman-like approach to working with the other side. How did all of this come about? How have we gotten to the point where we are right now?
Well, I can't claim to have any inside knowledge about how this came about, but you have to presume that there are political calculations at play. And politicians are typically very, very strategic in votes that they take, in positions that they decide to take. A lot of times there's public polling that's done by a particular either someone who's in office or running for office to get a sense of where the public is, so that maybe their candidate can hop on board and be in agreement with a particular point of view on one issue or another. And so maybe there was some polling going on that let Marjorie Taylor Greene know that some of these positions on Epstein files, on Obamacare subsidies, on a number of other issues as well, that the mainstream Republican positions, the Trump administration Republican positions on these issues were out of step, and she wanted to be more in line with where the public is, to preserve her future political interests. And of course, that's the big question: is what is next for her? What does she want to do? What realistically could she do? And she's got a lot of different opportunities here in the state of Georgia. And if she wants to look even bigger than that, there's a presidential contest coming up in 2+ years that she could become a part of and try for the Republican presidential nomination to replace President Trump, because he is going to be term limited. So very, very interesting to watch all of this unfold. I've been working my sources, I know you have too, to try to sort of get more insight into exactly how this happened, why this happened. But for now, we just have to sort of watch what's happening and try to digest it in a way that that really makes sense and and sort of gives us an idea about what might happen over the next several months.
And let's look at it from the practical standpoint of what this means for the voters, the good people of Georgia's Northwest Georgia 14th Congressional District that stretches all the way up from the metropolitan Chattanooga, Tennessee MSA on the Georgia side, all the way down into Metro Atlanta's western exurbs, for lack of a better word. We're talking Rome, Canton, Paulding County. 24 hours ago, we got, I believe this was our first entrant into what is going to become a wide open seat in just a matter of weeks. A gentleman named Jim Tully, who is the chairman of the Republican 14th Congressional District Party, the Republican Party in the 14th Congressional District. He announced his candidacy. We can only imagine how many other folks will want to jump into this open seat, because it is wide open. It is drawn in a heavily Republican district. We've done a number of stories on Atlanta News First profiling the 14th District, its history, the individuals who have sought public office or congressional representation on Capitol Hill from that district. We're looking at this is the other issue we were really delving into the weeds on for AtlantaNewsFirst.com, is how the mechanics of a special election actually occur.
Yeah.
We have where, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Governor Brian Kemp is responsible for setting the date of a special election. We've heard from various sources that could be in March, possibly, maybe not. We don't know. A special election to fill out the rest of her term. There could be a runoff for that special election. Then we have the May 19th general primaries. Could be a runoff with that. And then we're looking at a general election in November.
That's
possibly
5.
a runoff. That's 6.
I mean,
right
that's
there.
a lot.
That's unheard of.
It's asking a lot of voters to keep going to the polls again and again and again. But yeah, I mean, that is potentially what happens if nobody gets 50% plus 1. Then it will these sort of primaries will head to runoff elections, and so we could be looking at a half a dozen elections for this one seat alone. And as far as who's going to get in the race, who's not going to get in the race? I mean, if you're a Republican, I mean, I don't know of a lot of Democrats, although I'm sure Democrats will declare, maybe some Democrats who have opposed her over the last couple of election cycles. But for a Republican who has any designs on serving in the U.S. Congress, this is about as safe a district as you can get. So if you are able to win this seat, you could hold it as long as you'd like, and I think that a lot of Republicans, probably looking at Marjorie Taylor Greene and thinking to themselves up until last Friday that she was going to stay in that position for the foreseeable future, and now all of a sudden there's an opportunity for them. So so we're hearing from our first potential, our first candidate for this office, this local district GOP chair. I'm sure that there are going to be others in the days and weeks ahead who will announce their intentions to run. And as you said, it's up to Governor Kemp. He has to call for a special election. I believe he has 30 days from the time that she leaves office, which we now know, according to her announcement, will be January 5th. 30 days from that point in which to call for a special election. So, we'll see what Governor Kemp does as far as the timing, all of this, but it's going to be a very busy first couple of months in the new year once we turn the calendar into 2026, which we already knew was going to be a big political year with the midterm elections in November of 2026. Now we have this race that a lot of people are going to look at as well and try to glean whether or not the contest here in Georgia's 14th district is somehow indicative of what we're going to be seeing in the midterm elections only a few months later.
You mentioned that if a Republican, whichever Republican, is able to emerge victorious in a special election or a primary or a general election, can really hold on to the seat as long as they want. Marjorie Taylor Greene mentioned in her resignation announcement that she did not want to put the district through a contentious election, presumably against a candidate endorsed by President Donald Trump, and yet she was so enormously popular in the district. Her office, everything from what I've heard, did a very good job delivering constituent services, which is one of the number one responsibilities for a congressional representative, to maintain good relations with your voters and deliver solve the problems, deliver the services that they require. Yeah, she was enormously popular. Could you make the argument that an endorsement from President Donald Trump isn't necessarily the so-called death knell for a candidate? Would it have really mattered, pure speculation, would it have really mattered if she had gone up against a Republican endorsed by Donald Trump?
There's a whole list of Republicans endorsed by Donald Trump who have lost elections. I'm thinking more specifically, the one that jumps into my mind is the David Perdue race. Also, the Herschel Walker race. Those are the two, the Senate contest and the gubernatorial race. Both of those candidates. But there have been others, and so you make a good point. I don't think that just because someone has the endorsement of President Trump that automatically means that he or she is going to go on and win in the general election. In fact, it could be argued as President Trump enters into his lame duck period, that's a reference to the fact, not an animal, but a reference to the fact that the president is nearing the end of his term or in the last couple of years of his term, when traditionally all presidents begin to lose a bit of their political clout as sitting lawmakers are more worried about their own futures than they are about the sitting president. It becomes a little bit more challenging for presidents to really exercise that kind of political authority and power. And so maybe the argument is that you don't want the endorsement of President Trump, although, he certainly, President Trump had the support of the vast majority of voters from the 14th district. As we said, it is a heavily Republican district, and so you really never know, but I do think that it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with these upcoming midterm elections. There have been a lot of articles written over the last several days about MAGA, the MAGA movement, about President Trump and his political strength at this point, whether Marjorie Taylor Greene resigning is because President Trump is so strong, because he had threatened to find another candidate to run against her in a primary, and so she backed out instead of having to face off against him, or that maybe leaving Congress actually means that she is the successor as far as being the head of MAGA, and that she is going to take a lot of her supporters with her wherever she goes, whatever she decides to do next. And so maybe this is a sign of weakness for President Trump. But again, I think all of that is a little too early to say. We'll have to wait and see what happens with these elections coming up in the next calendar year, which is very quickly approaching.
All of which continues to make Georgia the preeminent political battleground state in the nation. We'll continue to follow all of the late-breaking developments in the shocking and really stunning resignation of Marjorie Taylor Greene from Congress. A reminder to watch and listen to all of the Atlanta News First podcast on our YouTube page, as well as wherever you download your favorite podcast on your favorite podcasting platform, and a reminder to watch On the Record with Atlanta News First every Sunday at 11 a.m. From Rick Folbaum, I'm Tim Darnell, wishing all of you a very happy and safe Thanksgiving holiday.
Thank you for watching A&F Plus. For more breaking news, live coverage, and your community stories, download the Atlanta News First app. You can also watch us on YouTube, Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV. To join the conversation on YouTube Live, visit our channel and hit subscribe. You can also listen to the Atlanta News First podcast by searching Atlanta News First on your preferred listening platform.